Right, welcome. I was about to say welcome back to the channel. Who do I think I am? Anyway, some people hit 20,000 subscribers and they think, do you know what my audience truly deserves? A couple of paintbrushes. Others go wild and they offer out some paint pots. Truly history's greatest philanthropists over there. But over here, no, no. We do giveaways the cool way. Because for 20k subscribers, I thought, what is the most responsible, sensible, absolutely unnecessary thing that I could commission? And naturally, the answer was a realistic Warhammer 40k boltgun. The kind the Imperium would lose paperwork over. Look at it. Anyway, I'm giving this away to one of you guys. Now, before you start frantically clicking every button on the screen like you're trying to activate exterminators, here's how you are going to achieve entering. Where am I going? I don't know. I thought this was going to go a lot smoother. I had it all planned out in my head. Anyway, basically, I'm just going to make one post on my YouTube channel and only my YouTube channel. And the post is going to explain everything you need to do, how to enter. The giveaway is just for our YouTube community only because, guys, you've been here. You've suffered through my content for long enough, earning this moment. So just, keep an eye out for that post, read the details, follow them like the loyal guardsman has ordered you to run directly at Tyranids. Anyway, today's video isn't just about me giving away something wildly impractical, because we're also going to have a look at some Warhammer lore, what boltguns actually are, why they exist, and why they're basically like the least subtle projectile weapons in the entire galaxy. Spoiler alert, they will make things explode inside you. Anyway, and we're going to do it all whilst looking up close and personal at this bad boy. Like, I'm going to spin it round as well, just for, extra funsies. I do want to take a moment to, hello. I want to take a moment to thank Harvey, who I'm just holding it like my baby. I'm not giving it away. I want to take a moment to thank Harvey, who actually did commission this boltgun for me. As you can probably tell, his talent just surpasses the rest of us mere mortals. The man's an absurdly skilled prop and costume maker. One of those people who just casually produces things that make you question all of your life choices. I have linked his details in the description, but if you've got Instagram, please go give him a follow. Honestly, the stuff he makes is unbelievable. Like he has like a full size Witch King of Angmar costume. Yes, that guy, like full size. Some people, they knit scarves. This guy, he builds Dark Lords and bolt guns. Like, he's cool. So anyway, grab yourself a drink, sit back, and let's talk about the Imperium's favourite way to turn heresy into confetti. So a bolter, or a bolt gun if you are feeling like showing off, is basically the Imperium's idea of like a reasonable sort of like handheld weapon. I'm going to try and put this put it behind me. It's kind of adorable. Like on the surface. Is that going to balance there? It is now, baby. Anyway, what was I talking about? Reasonable handheld weapons, right? Like this one. Anyway, I said it was adorable. Why did I say that? I don't know. It actually fires bolts. This is where my mind was going. They kind of sound cute, like that little dog. That Disney dog, was he called Bolt? Anyway, but then you realise they're essentially tiny explosive death charges with abandonment issues. Imagine the blaster that Han Solo shot first, but then merge it with a Doom rocket launcher and then give it emotional problems, and then hand it to an 8-foot warrior monk who thinks that health and safety is a heretical bedtime story. Bolter. Now, naturally, the Imperium gives these to its like finest murder priests because apparently subtlety is something only Eldar and other pointy-eared show-offs worry about. Right then, the Bolter. Absolute poster child of the Adeptus Astartes. If Space Marines had a family crest, it'd just be like a bolter firing majestically into the void with a choir that's screaming in Latin behind them. Anyway, fair enough. It's the gold standard of just please stop existing technology. Here's the fun twist, though. Fun twist. People, I sound like my geography teacher. Now, most people assume that the bolter is just a marine-only party trick. The Imperium actually hands them out all over the shop. It's kind of like the galaxy's worst loyalty program. If you survive long enough, fill out a few forms, avoid being digested by tyrannids, and eventually someone might let you borrow one. Now, the bolts themselves, they're a lovely little bit of kit. Each round is compact, beautifully engineered, kind of like a way of turning an enemy into like a Jackson Pollock installation. They're tasteful, they are expressive, pretty bloody messy. And then there's Chaos, bless them. They're all still running around with the bolter equivalent of like retro consoles. Loyalists are rocking the shiny PS6 but it works version, while the traitor legions cling to their like dusty pre-heresy models, like the blokes insisting that the Mega Drive was peak gaming. Now, to be fair, they still do function, sometimes even as intended, sometimes explosively not. But that's Chaos for you, always committed to the bit. So the bolter, it kind of sits neatly in the middle of the Imperium's like, how many holes would you like in your target? That kind of menu. You've got the bolt. I'm going to cough now. No, I'm not. You've got the bolt pistol, the polite pocket-sized option for when you want to ruin someone's day without making a fuss. And at the far end sits the heavy bolter, which isn't so much a weapon, it's more of a lifestyle choice. The standard bolter, now that's like the Goldilocks zone. Bear with me, because not too little, not too much, just the right amount of completely unnecessary overkill. That's how Goldilocks went, right? A typical Astartes bolter is perfectly manageable. Obviously, if you're 8 feet tall, built like a refrigerator, and have the upper body strength of a 90s video game boss who takes up half the screen. I digress. For someone else, like humans, with bones that aren't reinforced by plot armour, there are several smaller variants. The Adeptus Sororitas use those, mostly because carrying a marine-sized bolter would make even their power armour contemplate early retirement. Still, big or small, the end result is the same. Someone is about to become modern art. Now, to Space Marines and the Sisters of Battle, the bolter, it's not just a gun. It's basically the Emperor's personal smite button, lovingly provided, so they can delete anything that looks vaguely heretical. It's half weapon, half holy relic, like if your nan's treasured family Bible could also fire explosive doom at 900 rounds per minute. That'd be cool, right? Now, the Astartes, they don't merely clean their merely clean their bolters. No, they tend to them. Like, they pamper these things like a 40-year-old bloke polishing his mint condition NES, whispering prayers that sound suspiciously like, please don't jam during the boss fight. I'm sorry if I've offended you. Sisters are the same, just more incense and significantly more side-eye. Sorry if I've offended you. Now, when Marines aren't busy kicking chaos in the teeth, a good chunk of their day is spent performing firing rituals. In normal human terms, this basically means stripping a gun down, oiling every fiddly bit, having a heartfelt chat with the machine spirit like it's an old mate at the pub, basically doing everything short of buying it dinner to ensure it behaves the next time a Xenos blinks at them funny. It's all very like reverent, very dramatic, extremely relatable to anyone who's ever kind of begged their retro console not to crash right before the final boss. Every Space Marine receives a bolter that's been handcrafted by the chapter artificers or the Mechanicus. And by handcrafted, I do mean assembled with the same chaotic enthusiasm your dad used when building that flat pack furniture your mom wanted, whilst insisting that he's perfectly calm. Only one more pint of Guinness will help him. Now, artificers, and the tech priests follow more rituals than like a Tolkien wizard on laundry day. There's chanting, there's like cog waving, there's incense wafting. That's a lasso, not a waft. What's a waft? That's a waft. Someone's usually hitting something with a spanner while shouting, "Work, you blessed thing!" It's less manufacturing and more mid-season finale of the Great Mechanicus Bake Off. And the best bit, I'm really not funny, and the best bit, Astartes bolters are gene-locked. They only work for actual Space Marines. So if anyone else, obviously, tries to fire one, the bolter just kind of crosses its metaphorical arms and then refuses. Like your old, well, I don't know, I had a comparison and it's gone. Anyway, so in the end, each Marine kind of gets like a bespoke, ritually blessed, DNA, snobbish death machine. Basically the Warhammer equivalent of a lightsaber, but chunkier, louder, and more likely to require a tech priest to have an existential crisis over it. But anyway, the Boltgun, it's why, it's what we're talking about. Don't know why I started that sentence off like that. It's kind of like the loyal companion of every space marine, like a beloved family pet that also happens to turn people into chunky salsa. It's been the Astartes' like iconic weapon for the millennia, but it wasn't always the headliner. So back in the really, really old days, before the Imperium had its first cup of like recaf, the Astartes marched around with Volkite weapons. Now, these were kind of like pre-Imperial thermal death rays. Basically what you'd get if like a Star Wars blaster and then a Star Trek phaser ran away together. They're running now. Fell in love, raised their baby, who brought like a flamethrower to school. Compact, melty, and powerful enough to make even a Chaos Lord reconsider his life choices. But like all the gloriously retro tech, there was a catch. Volkites, they were just a nightmare to mass produce, even for the Mechanicum, which is kind of like the same group that casually builds kilometre and high cathedral robots powered by hope and existential screaming. Making Volkites at a scale was kind of like asking Games Workshop to keep the lore consistent. It's theoretically possible. It's never happening though, is it? We can dream. They also had mediocre range and needed more maintenance than an Atari 2600 held together with prayers and tape and whatever spare screws you found under your sofa. Now, it's not ideal for a galaxy-spanning crusade with a strict conquer everything by Tuesday schedule. So by the time that the Horus Heresy arrived, the Volkite had gone the way of Betamax, fondly remembered by die-hard enthusiasts, but replaced by something cheaper and sturdier and far easier to ship than a crate. Then we enter the Terran Bolter, less elegant, kind of more explodey, and perfect for Astartes who wanted a practical way to redecorate enemy trenches in shades of like visceral red. And then the Bolter took the throne, while the Volkite got relegated to just cool Relic, carried by that one guy in your gaming group who insists everything was better in 30k. But why did the Bolter become the Bolter? It's just brutally efficient, right? It's gloriously excessive, and it's about as subtle as igniting a lightsaber at a funeral. It fires these mass-reactive bolts, like tiny missiles with emotional issues. Each round shoots out, burrows into the target, and then like politely detonates like a particularly vindictive claymore. The sound is, let's say, shall we say memorable? Think thunder mixed with that wet splat of tomato getting obliterated on concrete. Very Call of Duty, if Call of Duty was directed by Peter Jackson during his sack of Minas Tirith, but with like way extra orc bits. That's where I'm going with it. To the Space Marine though, a bolter isn't just a gun. It's basically Excalibur. If Excalibur exploded people. They received it after years of hypno-conditioning and being screamed at by a chaplain who hasn't blinked since the M31. Now, the bolter is a holy symbol, the Emperor's own like delete key, and a very subtle message that humanity is done negotiating. In their hands, the bolter becomes like divine wrath made physical. Like if Thor's hammer and the BFG from Doom decided to like tag team each other and just share protein shakes. Every shot is essentially a prayer, assuming your prayers involve high velocity shrapnel and someone exploding into pink mist. Forging a bolter, although it is well, a full-time nightmare. These things are not made with a glue gun and positive vibes. Crafting a bolter requires master artisans, sacred alloys, forbidden blueprints, and enough tech wizardry to kind of make Tony Stark sigh and call it a day. Even the ammunition, the bolts, they must be forged with ritual-like precision and cared for, like a mint condition Pokemon card in the original packaging. And of course, they're temperamental, right? The bolters, they need regular devotion cleaning rituals, whispering encouragement, kind of sounds like me on a weekend prepping for a Monday, and the occasional offering just to keep the machine spirit from having a strop. Now, every Marine kind of maintains his weapon with the reverence of someone who's just like, well, you know, when you just find your Game Boy again and you want to give it a clean with a toothbrush, it's slow, it's methodical, it's terrified of scratching it, because again, if you neglect it, it's just going to jam at the worst possible moment, because nothing says grim dark future quite like a sacred rocket rifle that needs emotional support. All right, so the bolter, in all of its like, please consult your nearest safety officer. Glory, it fires 75 caliber rounds. That's not a bullet. I need a drink. Look how depressing this is. Normal. Life hates me. There we go. I'm not croaking anymore. Shall we carry on? What did I say? It's not a bullet, because it's not. It's like a fun-sized tin of baked beans launched at supersonic speeds. It's a chunky, like semi-automatic assault weapon with the weight of like a steel-wrapped brick, and the personality of someone who kind of enjoys property damage. Now, compared to the Lasgun, oh, I've got an itchy nose. The bolter, sorry, the bolter has more mass, more impact, and far more like someone's Wednesday is about to end abruptly. It's a bit shorter. It's presumably, I guess, so Space Marines, they don't keep smacking it into bulkheads like a bloke trying to navigate a hallway with an oversized Warhammer army case. You'll also notice that there's no stock, which seems odd until you remember that Space Marines' power arm is roughly the size of a fridge. So shouldering a weapon inside it would kind of look like a toddler trying to use like one of your old school controllers while wearing oven mitts. Where does my brain go sometimes? The armour is the stock. It absorbs the recoil, it will stabilise the shots, and it probably mutters a very disappointed if you miss. Of course, sometimes the Imperium gets tactical, usually after someone has watched way too much Sharp or read a codex upside down. They also slap a stock on, extend the barrel, and then they'll like wire in an M40 targeter system. And congratulations, you now have a Stalker pattern bolter. So this is kind of like the sniper rifle, I guess. It's kind of like the sniper high rifle version of the bolter. It's ideal for when like a Space Marine wants to be sneaky, which in 8 feet of brightly coloured armour is kind of like watching the Hulk try and tiptoe past you. They fire Stalker silenced shells. These are silent, obviously, in the same way that someone like Darth Vader is breathing down a corridor quiet. But it's the closest a Marine is ever going to get to subtlety. Usually right as like a demon prince is in the middle of a dramatic monologue. Now the big boy is your Mark Vb Godwyn Pattern. I think I've said that correctly. Anyway, plenty of Imperial forces. They get to carry bolt guns, but Space Marines, now they're going to bring this Godwyn Pattern to the deluxe edition. Now this isn't just like a firearm. It is a statement piece. It's the like Orc Fortress set of bolters. Massive, expensive, guaranteed to injure anyone who lifts it wrong. Compared to this, the bolt guns carried by the Sisters of Battle or the Astra Militarum heroes, basically like the Lego minifigure accessories. I'm so sorry. Practical, adorable, and usually unlikely to separate your arms from your torso, but still cute. A normal person picking up a god is probably going to look like a Gandalf It's probably going to look like a hobbit wielding Gandalf's staff. As for recoil, imagine firing a rifle that punches back harder than a Street Fighter like character. No sort of like unaugmented human is going to walk away from that without being folded into the floor. Naturally, the Godwyn, it's a holy artifact of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Now it's blessed, it's stamped, it's sanctified, probably assembled while someone reads the Silmarillion backwards, waving like a sacred cog over a vat of incense. It's built on ancient like STC tech, older than the most empires. Gaming communities older than them too, even around like 90% of the lore itself. Now, pattern variants, because even Marines like cosmetics, you have quite a few. The Astartes chapters, they love flair. They customize bolters like 80s kids customize consoles, or like, you know, when you first got to do your computer lessons and you changed the colour of every single letter in the font. We'll start with my boys, the Blood Angels. We have to do it right. They have this pattern with like elegant, dramatic, very like an elf forged blade, but with explosions kind of vibe. Space Wolves, for example, they have the Fenris pattern. It probably smells faintly of wet dog and mead. It looks like it was carved from something they hunted for fun. I'm really sorry if there's now a noise in the background. My cat's decided that, brunch is good time. But despite all of these variants, the Godwyn pattern, it remains the classic, kind of like the Mario option of bolters. Like it's reliable, the quintessential firstborn weapon, the sacred boomstick of like the Codex Astartes, that one gun that every battle brother will trust and cherish and would absolutely pick over any legendary loot drop. Because at the end of the day, nothing says for the Emperor quite like a handheld rocket launcher disguised as a rifle. Now the Godwyn pattern, it doesn't just stop at being massive and terrifying. It comes with features like the galaxy's angriest piece of like premium tech. Think of it as like a fully modded retro console, except instead of the extra RAM, it offers expanded capacity for righteous destruction. First up, the ammo counter. It's like a neat little display on the outside, and it tells you how many bolts that you've got left. Basically a Space Marine Fitbit, but for murder. Because the Astartes enjoy convenience as much as carnage, and the same number appears inside the helmet HUD, just in case they're like too busy, dissecting someone to look down. Then you've got like the sickle-shaped magazine. Now this holds 30 bolts, and thanks to the wonderfully named sinister Dexter locking mechanism, which sounds like a spell someone like forgot to write down, the weapon can fire controlled bursts for up to 4 rounds per trigger pull. Okay, 4, because one rocket-propelled explosion apparently wasn't enthusiastic enough. Go figure. Now naturally, it comes with a biometric gene lock in the grip. Now, the bolter, it literally will check your DNA before agreeing to fire, delivering the gun equivalent of like a cold, judgmental stare if you're not a space marine. Like my mum has a car that recognises her thumbprint, and she feels so superior every time I go to open the door, and she's like, you're not the chosen one. Then there's the built-in targeter that links straight to the armor's auto sensors, so when a marine aims, the bolter is going to suit the bolter and the suit is going to basically have a quiet tactical meeting about how to best ruin someone's day from 200 meters away. It's teamwork, but with way more explosions and fewer trust falls. And the sound, okay, bolters don't bang, they deliver a deep, angry rumble as the like propellant kicks the bolt out like it's late for that really irritating meeting that you forgot about, followed by the signature boom on impact, right? The kind of wet, bear with me, because I've said wet and bang in the same sentence here, but wet like detonation that you'd get if you crossed a hand grenade with a Mortal Kombat fatality. There we go. In short, this Godwyn pattern, it isn't just a weapon, it's like a full sensory experience. I'm getting way too excited. I'm so sorry. Let me have a drink and calm down. It's kind of like a surround sound if the soundtrack was exclusively screaming and detonation. Why don't humans use these things? I hear you ask, and if you didn't, you do now. Ask the question. Astartes bolters, like most Space Marine gear, they follow one simple philosophy. If a normal human can use it, something has gone terribly wrong. The Godwyn pattern, it's so heavy that a standard person, someone who hasn't been rewritten, like a grim, dark bionicle, can barely lift it without developing new regrets. The grips alone are big enough that a mortal trying to hold one is going to be ridiculous. And if a human actually, I've got such an itchy face from these cat hairs. If a human actually fires one, the recoil would likely just yeet their arms into the warp with all the enthusiasm of the Witch King hurling a hobbit. Now, naturally, it's completely illegal for non-Astartes to wield one, partly for safety, which is nice, right? Partly for reverence, mostly because the Imperium really doesn't want Dave from the Administratum running around with a portable war crime, hence the gene locks. And the bolter checks your DNA like a grumpy nightclub bouncer, deciding whether you're on the list or off the list. I don't think I've ever even been to the nightclub, but it would be fun to be on the list, right? And if the Adeptus Arbites catch you with one, or even with a single bolt, let's just say the punishment is delivered with like Judge Dredd levels of confidence and retro RoboCop enthusiasm, and you're not going to enjoy the experience, okay? Are there human safe-ish bolters? Yes, I think that there are variants made for humans. The lock patterns are the grown-up, sensible siblings, still powerful, still terrifying, but slightly less likely to detach your limbs unless you are being particularly stupid. Officers of the Astra Militarum, Adeptus, Arbites, and other VIPs sometimes carry them. VIPs. And when a Lasgun just won't express their feelings, I suppose, strongly enough, it's what they opt for. Basically, if you look at it this way, an Astartes bolter is going to be wielded by gene-forged demigods, and they're going to explode everything spectacularly. A human pattern bolter is wielded by very brave people, explodes everything just significantly less dramatically. It's the difference, I suppose, between swinging Andoril and swinging a very nice but blunt and slightly rusty dwarven axe. Both will absolutely ruin the enemy's day. One is simply more likely to vaporize your shoulders in the process. When it does come to sheer stopping power, the bolter does just absolutely embarrass the Lasgun. A Lasgun fires like a neat little beam of light, very respectable, very tidy, very Star Trek phaser, set to mild inconvenience kind of levels. A bolter, meanwhile, I feel like I'm throwing a lot of shade at Star Trek in this video, I'm so sorry, launches this like self-propelled explosive warhead, roughly the size of a small rodent, straight into someone's torso. It's the difference between waving a laser pointer at someone versus getting blindsided by a runaway minecart from one of those really cool old school movies. One scorches your armour and the other is going to turn you into an abstract, impressionist smear. What? So why not issue bolters to everyone? Just hand them out, because bolters are divas. Okay, a Lasgun is, think of it as like something lame, a Toyota Corolla of weapons. Sorry to anyone that drives a Toyota Corolla. They're boring. They are reliable, still functioning perfectly after the universe has collapsed into a warp-powered fever dream. Give it a wipe down and a muttered prayer and it will fire thousands of shots without complaint. So it does do the job, but meh. A bolter, however, it's kind of like that antique Lego Technic set fused with like a temperamental espresso machine. It needs ritual cleaning, special oils, careful disassembly, whispered apologies and possibly emotional reassurance. Like I said, very much like me. A Space Marine veteran can maintain one blindfolded while giving a speech about duty. An Imperial Guardsman, however, would probably install the magazine backwards and then wonder why it's on fire, which is why your average grunt gets the Lasgun. It's durable, it's idiot-proof, it's rechargeable with anything. Bolters require centuries of training, the muscle mass of like a gym mascot, and a machine spirit that only throws tantrums sometimes. Then we're going to briefly talk about the ammo, because it's really important. The bolts are heavy, they are chunky, they're about as convenient to carry when you used to have to carry like game manuals everywhere with you. The power packs, on the other hand, they are light, they're compact, and they can be recharged by a generator, a campfire, or the disappointed glare of a commissar. Now, Astartes, they don't care. Their whole strategy is just basically hit hard, hit fast, and leave nothing standing. Walk away from the explosion in slow motion and just look bloody cool. They're not planning for a 6-day trench slog. Okay, now Guardsmen, they absolutely, on the other hand, are into their long marches, their sieges, supply lines that the Navy keeps losing, and then suddenly Mr. Cool Bolter is standing there with an empty mag and a life full of regrets. In summary, a bolter is your enormous damage, enormous maintenance, enormous ammo, enormous problems, whereas your Lasgun does less damage, but won't explode, jam, or request spiritual therapy mid-battle. Hence the Imperium's favourite flashlight of death remains the standard issue. Bolter modifications, let's talk about those, because even the apocalypse needs accessories. Now, bolters being the Swiss Army chainswords of the 41st millennium are endlessly customizable. Some upgrades, they are blessed by the Mechanicus with the incense and the chanting. Others are what happens when a space wolf says, "What if we add more bits?" see what happens. Now, scopes are common. Your power armor is already going to have like more vision modes than the Lord of the Rings Extended Edition box sets, the thermal, night vision, probably one that highlights heresy and neon, but proper scope is still going to help. You can tune them for like heat signatures, spectral anomalies, all that like faint glow of the certain like Xenos get when they're out and about being just generally annoying. Now, then come the drum magazines. So these are like your chunky ammunition barrels. They're perfect for when you want to fire like you're reenacting the finale of a retro arcade shooter. More rounds, fewer reloads, fewer enemies surviving long enough to complain. Now, no matter the upgrades though, a bolter is still one of humanity's deadliest inventions. And when it runs dry or it jams, it's not really an issue because the casing alone weighs enough to do like catastrophic damage. Plan B is basically hit them with the bloody gun. And believe it or not, Plan B works amazingly well. In the hands of a Space Marine, a bolter isn't just a weapon, it's an apocalypse distribution device with a handle. Now, bolter ammo, or bolts, are what happens when someone looks at a normal bullet and says, yeah, but what if it acted like a tiny angry space shuttle from like an 80s sci-fi movie? Now, instead of just being pushed down a barrel like a respectable projectile, a bolt self-propels. It's literally like a miniature rocket with trust issues. Back at the beginning, I explained that it's a 75 caliber escape pod from like Battlestar Galactica, fired directly at someone's torso. You've got yourself a bolt. Of course, firing a rocket inside your gun would normally warp the barrel. So the bolter uses this like two-stage firing system that's half engineering, half Mechanicus found this in a cursed drawer. How does it work? Normal propellant is going to kick the bolt out of the barrel. That blast is then going to ignite the bolt's rocket motor. The rocket waits to fire until the bolt clears the weapon, preventing your bolter from becoming a metal pretzel. Once free, it's going to accelerate like a furious little starfighter heading straight for someone's internal organs. Now, by the 41st millennium, 75 caliber became the standard because if you're firing tiny rockets, you might as well commit. Earlier patterns, they used everything like from 50 to 70, basically like the Atari versus like NES versus like all of those other consoles, right? The era of bolter calibers. Now, the real insanity, this comes from the mass-reactive fuse. A bolt doesn't explode on impact. It politely enters the target first, then detonates inside, turning their innards into kind of like a chaotic splatter that would make the alien queen nod approvingly. So in short, to summarize ammo, a bolt doesn't just hit you, it's going to enter the chat, accelerate, and then explode from within. And if you compare this to something, again, like the Lasgun at this point, it just looks like a really mildly boring flashlight. If we're just going to touch on ammo slightly while we're still here, and we're going to think of this as kind of like the bolter tasting menu. Now, each round is just kind of a different way of saying, please just stop existing. Or if we start with the standard bolt, now this is like the classic, your everyday kind of rocket bullet. It's going to fire straight, it punches, it explodes inside, it comes packed with enough gubbins to kind of make an engineer weep. Essentially, it's a pocket-sized siege weapon. Then we've got Kraken rounds, like nice armor. Shame if this trades the usual core for adamantium, and it hits like a spite-powered drill. Perfect for Chaos Marines or anyone who looks too confident in a 2+ save. Then we've got Inferno bolts. Basically, everything is now on fire. It swaps the core for Promethium gel, and you get slightly less penetration, but significantly more screaming. Don't clip that. Wow. Loyalist version is basically chemical barbecue. Thousand Suns version is basically magical hate crime. Then we're going to look at the Hellfire rounds. These are like your anti-tyrannid, anti-anything with flesh kind of thing. They're mutagenic acid in a vial that bursts into like acidic needles. It turns biomass into soup if it's organic and it's having a terrible day. Then we've got Metal Storm. Now this is kind of for when there's a bit of a crowd. Proximity fused mid-air frag explosion. Great for hordes. Terrible for Chaos Marines who mostly just shrug and complain. Then we've got the Stalker silenced shells. Now these are sneaky for a Marine, like I said earlier, as it's about as subtle as Darth Vader's breathing, but subsonic quick, low noise rounds for when Astartes want to be stealthy. In the same way, like I said, a fridge falling down the stairs is stealthy. Less boom, but more precision. Then we've got the anti-phasic shells, which is basically stop revving, you metallic prat. Death Watch Special for Necrons prevents them from phasing out and reloading their save file, and it forces proper, respectable death. The same bolter, just endless flavours of overkill. And then while we're here, if we briefly kind of look at the different bolter variants before we end the video, we've got an assault bolter, which is basically it's a bolt gun that's had 3 espressos. Inceptor squads use it to introduce high velocity chaos to anything below them. Then we've got the stalker bolter. This is like your standard bolt gun, but with a long barrel and a scope, because sometimes a space marine wants to feel like a sniper, a very, very loud sniper. Then you've got the bolt sniper rifle. While we're talking about snipers, this is like the Vanguard Eliminator's toy of choice. Has more vision modes than like a luxury car, and ammo types that kind of range from shrapnel confetti to guided missile to biological regret. Then you've got the storm bolter. Now these are 2 bolt guns kind of like glued together because subtlety is for the weak. Now they fire an unreasonable amount of exploding shells while still being compact, apparently. Next up is the Forge Bolter. It's a massive bolt gun strapped onto like a tech marine's power armor, because why hold your gun when your suit can do it for you? And I think that kind of wraps up. We've been here a long time. Oh my goodness. But the humble, the subtle, the understated bolter, a weapon so refined, so elegant, so thoroughly not any of those things at all, really, that it's basically the Imperium's answer to the question, what if a rifle could be a small-scale natural disaster? I wonder. Now, we've kind of covered everything in this video, kind of from its angry rocket ammo to why humans shouldn't touch one unless they've updated their will, to the many flavours of overkill but make it artsy, to all the variations Space Marines just can't stop modding like they're, well, modding. I'm out of the brain cells now. If nothing else, I do hope this really, really intense kind of deep dive into this lore has confirmed what we already knew. The bolter is humanity's loudest, most enthusiastic way of of solving problems. And now one of you is going to get to own one, which is really cool. It's completely unnecessary, gloriously impractical, beautifully crafted replica of the galaxy's favourite heretic shredder. I genuinely cannot overstate how exciting this giveaway is. I mean, how many channels hit 20k and go, yeah, let's just hand someone a bolt gun? Exactly. Okay? This is like peak decision making. It's because I bloody love you. Remember, I am posting one community post here on YouTube. I'm not organised enough to know when. With all of the giveaway details. That is how you enter. If you comment on this video, sacrifice a biscuit to the machine spirit, or even attempt psychic, like weird psychic powers on me, it's lovely. I'm flattered. It's very thematic, but it's not an entry. Just keep an eye out for that post. It might already be up by the time I've posted this video. Maybe future me in the future is organised. Who knows? Just follow the steps and become worthy. I also, just before I end the video, if you are still here, I do want to, one more time, just give a massive thanks again to Harvey for crafting this masterpiece. The man builds Witch Kings and bolt guns for fun. Go check him out. The link's in the description. Give him a follow if you're on Instagram, because talent like that needs to be seen. And finally, there are over 20,000 of us here, which is insane to me. This channel continues to be just one long, joyful descent into Warhammer and Lord of the Rings and gaming nonsense. And I am so, honestly, so grateful to everyone who shows up to listen to me ramble about fictional weaponry like it's a very intense pub chat. Anyway, that's enough noise for one day. I'm only going to implore you one time to please do all those things you need to do to support my channel. And I hope to see you in the next video.